I think it's accurate to say that the Jurassic Park franchise has always dealt with some rather heady themes in both its books and movies. Whether they be debates on the ethics of commercializing genetic power or maybe just the visualization of human beings' relationships with dangerous animals, this series is sort of centered around some very serious and typically science-driven subject matter. It's also had its fair share of metaphors and symbolic representation for things that we can recognize from our own unique pasts. A good example would obviously be the very existence of Jurassic World's Indominus Rex, which was essentially the embodiment of greed. The fact that it ends up destroying the theme park in which it was built, as well as needed to be taken down by the veteran acts of the franchise's past, the T-Rex and Velociraptor, should be a pretty clear indication as to what that abomination represents. It was a monster amongst animals, and was properly disposed of as such. The newest entry in the series, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, isn't without heady themes and symbolic metaphors of its own. In fact, it could be argued that this may be one of the most thematic films in the series if you know what to look for. Recently, J.A. Bayona commented on the deleted scene from this Jurassic film that would have featured another Indoraptor that was to be the yin to the black Indoraptor's yang. His exact words in the matter are, and I quote, "There was going to be a very black one and a very white one. And the black one was going to kill the white one, and it was kind of like this biblical idea. It will be like Cain and Abel, you know." Of course, this scene was ultimately cut from the movie, but rest assured, it's definitely not the only biblical reference tied to Fallen Kingdom. In fact, there are actually several small references that specifically point back to the book of Genesis during the duration of this movie. Now, from what I can gather, the reason that book in particular is being symbolized in mind for this Jurassic Park story has a lot to do with the actual plot and what takes place in the film itself. It looks as if the proliferation and mishandling of the dinosaurs is being broadcast on the screen as the beginning of the end for humanity. You can see subtext that directly links to Genesis all the way back to the beginning of the film, when the mercenaries take the rib of the female Indominus Rex in order to create the male Indoraptor, an obvious allegory to the tale of Adam and Eve. You'll notice, however, that the sexes of these two individuals has been flipped in Fallen Kingdom's story. As far as I'm concerned, that's an equally important part of what this movie is really trying to hammer home. You see, whenever this film gives us a bit of biblical material to mull over, it's almost always reversed or inverted from what the book of Genesis actually says. In my opinion, and yes, this is purely just what I think about what's going on here, it looks as if this was done to kind of illustrate the idea that man is responsible for a very evil perversion of what was naturally created. I feel like it's kind of saying this.
It's what you call discovery. I call the rape of the natural world.
You can see this in the most obvious reference to Genesis with the ship Arcadia's departure from Isla Nublar. Early on, many people were under the impression that this movie would be kind of like the Jurassic Park version of Noah's Ark, and I kind of agree with them completely on that. However, the major difference here happens to be the thing that's responsible for killing all of creation. Instead of a massive amount of water through heavy rain drowning all the animals, it's instead a large amount of fire and molten lava that's burning everything it touches. The yin to the yang of the biblical story, to be exact. Of course, once we get to the whole princess in the castle with a dragon bit during the second act, we're shown a scene that depicts Eli Mills, the villain of this movie, being summoned and reprimanded by Benjamin Lockwood for plotting to sell the dinosaurs. Remember back earlier to Mills' introduction where he states the following: "Let me give you a bit of history. This is where it all began. Before the island, Sorna, Jurassic Park, all of it. Hammond and Lockwood built a custom lab in the sub-basement and extracted the first DNA from amber right beneath our feet." Claire Dearing follows this up by saying, "Oh my goodness, what they did here was a miracle." I'm of the opinion that this is basically a little spin on the beginning of Genesis. Mills even states again that he's giving Claire a bit of history on where everything began. It's the "in the beginning" speech. I bring this up because the scene in which Lockwood expels Mills, who was his most trusted aide, leads directly into the evil conspirator actually murdering Benjamin Lockwood and assuming his place at the symbolic throne, going out of his way to sell off all of the dinosaurs, including the prototype Indoraptor, for profit, and even telling Iris that the value of Maisie, the human clone, is in his hands now. I'm kind of under the impression that Benjamin Lockwood may have been a representation for God in this movie's story, and Mills essentially played the role of Lucifer. But again, the story has been inverted for Fallen Kingdom, and Lucifer actually beats God and takes over the kingdom during these events. Now, there may be even more stuff like this in the movie that I haven't really found just yet, but from what I can tell, this film builds the structure of its plot off of a lot of biblical material to essentially send out one of Jurassic Park's oldest and most discussed themes. Genetic power is the most awesome force this planet has ever seen, yet they wielded it like a kid who's found his dad's gun. Creation is an act of sheer will, and man's will to create has given birth to this violent Frankenstein's monster sort of race that will rise up and ultimately challenge man's role as dominant life form on the planet.
God creates dinosaurs. God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs.
This is another one of the series' age-old warnings told through a very different set of metaphors. The book of Genesis seems to have been used to really kind of shape the story of dinosaurs being spread across the planet to create a brand new age. As Ian Malcolm states, we've entered a new era. Welcome to Jurassic World. The final thing I want to bring up is the fact that many fans have talked about Maisie Lockwood's similarities to the story of Moses in the book of Exodus. But since I can neither confirm nor deny any of that stuff here, I felt like it was something that should be held separate to the rest of the conversation, especially with it not being about anything from Genesis. Her words spoken in relaying her feelings for freeing the animals being, "I had to, they are alive, like me," is seen by a few to be a representation for the "let my people go" mantra that can be found in that Old Testament tale. I don't know if I believe all of that just yet, but I do find it incredibly interesting. Now I'm curious to hear what all of your individual thoughts are on this stuff in Fallen Kingdom. Do you guys think these themes of creation and world-altering genetic power do well with their symbolism to Genesis? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Now before I go, I want to thank my game wardens, as well as all of my InGen executives. I'd also like to thank all of my park workers and InGen hunters as well. It means the world to me that you guys continue to support what I do, and I seriously am extremely thankful for all of you just watching the videos. It honestly means the world. Now, I'd like to thank all of you for watching the video, and hope that you all enjoyed today's content. If you feel like I deserve it, I'd appreciate the like and hope that you'll consider subscribing if you are interested in hearing from me again. I'll see you all in the next video, guys, and as always, take it easy.